welcome to this month's Marine Robotics Reading Group. Today we have the lovely Dr. Julie Vercelloni here to speak to us. So a little bit of background on Julie. She works on machine learning, virtual reality, advanced Bayesian statistics for complex challenges in coral reef conservation. You're a research scientist at AIMS and an adjunct researcher here at QT as well. So I'm really excited to hear about Julie's work. So please make her feel very welcome and take it away.
Thank you for the introductions. Hi everyone, so I'm Julie. I come from AIMS, but being based here in QT. I've been at QT since more than 10 years now, and so yeah, QT is home for me, and I hope it will stay. I'm going to talk about the AI for coral reef monitoring. And just to be clear from the beginning, it's not just my research. It's just I can talk about this on the behalf of all my colleagues at AIMS. And we can do all of this because we have like these strong collaborations between ecologists, the AI scientists, and also like the statisticians. So I'm not AI scientist at all. I'm more like the statisticians at AIMS. But it's more like my work. It's more like we're building all this data for coral reef monitoring using AI, and that how can we analyze them in the way that they make sense for coral reef conservation. To start with, I'm sure like everyone is aware about the current status of the reef around the world. And so there is like this new report from last week who say that the coral reef, they reach a tipping point of non-return because of climate change. And so all the reef around the world are degrading really fast, and they're actually degrading faster than we can track them. And it's about 14% of the reef, of the coral cover, so that's the metric that we use to measure like the health of the reef, that we lost since 2009. It's a small number, but at the global scale, for a mean, it's quite big. But one of the main challenges that we have when we want to work at the global scales is the fact that we don't have data. There is no data. Like this number, this 14% that has been estimated, has been based off like really, really tiny portions of the reef that they actually monitors around the world. So here working in Australia, we're kind of biased because Australia is an outlier in terms of data on the reef that we have, and mostly because of AIMS, who monitor like the Great Barrier Reef over the last 40 years. But as soon as we work outside Australia and across the Pacific, it's like there is nothing. So there are some countries that they know that the coral reef are declining because of climate change, that they know the consequences of not having coral reef for a country in the Pacific, like it's used like for the food, for the shelter, for the cultures, but they don't have evidence-based to make decisions about how to protect their reef, and because like there is not enough data. And this is where AI can really help on this aspect. And so this is what I'm going to show you, like what we do at AIMS and through the different teams, through the different projects. How do we use AI? To start, I know it's you know exactly what everything means, but just to be sure, like we are on the same page with the definitions. I'm not an AI person, so all of this seems like I'm not an expert here, you are, but so the AI, like it's just a buzzword. Like the title of my talk is basically just using the buzzword. And so what we call AI is this massive bubble of everything, and what people, they pretend that AI is going to mimic some sort of human intelligence to make decisions and to do tasks. That's something we're pretty far away for coral reef monitoring at the moment. What we really do is like this machine learning, so like the bubble in the middle. And actually what is really relevant for us it's being at these frontiers between machine learning and data science, because it's not just about producing the data, but it's also about like making sense to the data, making them useful for decision making, that the managers or the reef scientists in the world can get their decisions, can get this information and make their own decisions about how to protect their reef. And so when we talk about ML, it gets really complex. And I always wonder like why each time I meet someone who does machine learning, they talk about something different. And then I realized like it's because it's really complex, because ML, it's about task, it's about architecture, it's about strategy, and everything can be like a mix of everything. But for coral reef monitoring, we're still kind of at this baby stage where we use ML for really few specific tasks. Mostly we only have like one architecture type. That is what I know. I know that there is a lot of research on it, and that's maybe not the most up-to-date pictures. And also, like, we use this supervised strategies, so like to train the ML. And so the AI and the ML, that the technology reached this maturity that we were able, like, let's take it and let's make it something bigger using this technology. And that's how we develop ReefCloud. So ReefCloud, it's a digital platform that everything is based on images from the seafloor. So people jump on ReefCloud, it's open access. They upload their images on the seafloor. And then we are mostly interested on the species so that live on the seafloors, and mostly like the hard coral communities, that they are the habitat forming on the reef. If you don't have corals, you don't have coral reef. And so ReefCloud is mostly three components, where we have the first component, which is to manage and to store the data. So everything is cloud-based. The second component, which is all the AI, so to analyze the images, that we're mostly going to focus on it today. And then the third component, which is actually what I'm really doing, it's about like how do we analyze this data, how to make sure that they make sense for decision making and management. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to stop me, and we can chat further. So we spent over the last 5-7 years to develop ReefCloud, and so by having this secure repository online, then we open a door to be able to collaborate with various organizations. So now with ReefCloud, we collaborate with some organizations that belong to community groups. Like, for example, we collaborate in Papua New Guinea, we collaborate with some fisherwomen. They're the ones who go fishing, and at the same time, they're taking the images, use ReefCloud, and they're using the result from ReefCloud to go to their own government and to show like how their reef are changing. Collaborate with reef scientists, indigenous scientists, and also some tourism industry, where we have some collaborations with restoration groups that they use ReefCloud to track how well the restoration is doing through time. And so, I lost them. So yeah, and with the AI, then we were able to have this technology to open the access to everyone to use AI workflow, so robust workflow. And so that if you connect on ReefCloud, that's your internal dashboard. It's completely private, and then people, they can see that this is where people, can you see it on the, no, anyway,
sorry.
That's, I can move. So that's the dashboard, that's people, you can see that's how many percentage of images that they manually trained, that's how much the machines have classified the images, and then you have some, you can see the images, like the locations of the sites, for example, and then you can export the data. And on the top of this, there is you can go deeper into the ML performances. This is because mostly we think that, so these people are not, some of them are not even scientists, but we have to provide this kind of metrics for them because they are the one who are going to judge about the validity of their own data. So there is a lot of tutorials as well. And so we provide also like the F1 score, so how well the machine is trained, and some other metrics as well, with a lot of text to hope that they will understand, and then they will say like, okay, the machine is well trained enough, and now then they can export. There is an export data somewhere. They can export the data, and we also have like a small report with some data explorations and some basic analysis that they can also use, and that is completely private. And so then by having this technology, we are able then to start to be able to integrate different sources of data together. And that's one of the latest pictures in the Pacific, so without Australia. And what is exciting here is you see like all these only 1 year of observations. So that's only one monitoring point ever, one specific point. It's because of people who started to use ReefCloud. And when we see a number of users through times, then we can see like we started with 10 users 6 years ago, and then we have more than 3,000 now. So that means like within ReefCloud, we have all these different projects who use AI for different purposes that we can then start to collaborate with them and to better understand the use of AI for the reef monitoring. And then, so people can decide to remain private, keep their data private, which is actually what most of people want to. They don't want to share their data, that's the reality. But also some of the people, they decide, I want them public. And this is where we start to do some of the modeling with all the data, and then this is how we display it. And people can jump, it's a public dashboard, and that's what we call, this is where we get from the data to action. People can see the impact of disturbances, they can see like how, sorry, it's a bit small, but they can see how the regional trajectory of coral cover change, for example, what we call the benthic composition, so all the different species at the same time. And so that is based on the public data.
What percentage of people share their data? Do you know?
Really small so far. Yeah, really small. In Australia, it's all open access, specifically because most of the data come from AIMS, so we cannot use our own data. But in the Pacific, we have few countries that work with us since the beginning and that they decided to share their data, but they don't even want to share all their data. And I think it's just because of the result of that we call science colonisms. There is all these years and years and years of Western scientists going to these countries, going there, getting their own data, going back home, publishing, and never talking about the local communities or the local researcher at all. And some of these countries, they say no more. Like some of these countries, they cannot share the data. It's at the governmental level. The government say like, you're not allowed to share any data. So there is this lack of trust as well that we try to be really mindful about it because something has to change. If we want to understand what's going on the reef at the global scale, we need data. But we can understand as well that some of these people, they don't want to share their data because of the unfortunate history. So the idea is that we bring them back the information. So we close the loop with ReefCloud. People can get this information as well, like at the more global level, but they have also the information needed to make their own decisions on the private space. So we really work at these two levels. And now that people, they start to trust more and more, especially what we do here. I could talk a lot about it because it's exactly what I'm doing, but the fact that we don't use the raw data, we use an aggregation, we aggregate the data at the bigger scale, People are like, okay, if you do this, you cannot show them on the map the exact locations, but you can still use it for the statistical model. So we kind of find more or less our way to this, but it's still a work in progress. Yeah, that was a good question. And so that's the typical usage of ReefCloud. It's people, sorry, should not necessarily have public, but people then use ReefCloud as a tool to be able to report to their own entities. So if it's a government or if it's on their own institutes about the status and the trends of their own reef. And so at the moment, ReefCloud is used to build some federal reports in a lot of Pacific nations, so including Australia. So when you hear about the status of the Great Barrier Reef, for example, this is all the data has been analyzed through ReefCloud. And also lately we have used it like for more global report, like with the UNESCO and the Global Coral Reef Monitoring Network. And also like we want to grow, so it's still a work in progress. Like ReefCloud is still something dynamic that we developed based on the needs. And one of the need is to be able to detect the bleaching. And so we have a team of the AI scientists like who developed like this new ML, which is able to quantify the bleaching at the coral colony level. So they mixed. I don't want to talk on their behalf because I think I would be wrong, but they mixed two types of approaches. They have the segmentations, automatic segmentations, who look at the coral colony. Then we have a point level to be able to get like the percentage of bleaching per colonies. And the same approach is now tested on the coral disease as well. So that will give us more grain informations about the bleaching and about the disease. I think probably some of you are involved with this. It's the surveillance system to detect the COTS. And so that's all this prototype with the cameras going on the water and automatically detect the COTS from images and having this, so to be able to count the number of COTS, but also like to be able like to deploy your arm and then kill them on the spot. It's pretty easy to kill them just with the vinegar and lemon. But they are definitely a pest, but that's mostly for the Great Barrier Reef. And then we have like also like people who upload images into ReefCloud from new technology. So that's an images you see here on the left. That's from the drone. So that was during the bleaching in Lisa Island. And also we are testing like the benefits of using like robots in the water. So everything based on images. So we have projects where on exactly the same locations of the reef, they have tested like different technology. Like, so that's the brubs, that's more for the fish, but it's the same concept by having like the camera taking images. And so that's a tripod that they put in the boat, out of the boat, going down, take a camera, put it up. So they mostly use it in the northern territory, when you can't really dive over there because of crocodiles and the tides and all the nice sea creatures over there. Working with the reef scan, I'm sure everyone knows this, and also like more like a UV. And so we did this analysis to see like how well are doing these different technologies. So same thing, like images was uploaded into ReefCloud. We trained like the ML model for each different types of technology. And here we did some modeling to see like how far away the estimations, for example, of hard coral, soft coral, substrate, or turf algae are between all this technology. So for example, in this one, we were using like the diver, which is our ground truth, because this is what we consider like the most precise methods at the moment. And so to be able to see like, in this specific one was to be able to see like if the reef scan was able to give like the same abundances than the divers. And the result was quite positive. So what we did is like, we were able then like to do like a full ecological assessment of a lot of different places that was in the Torres Strait Island based on the reef scan images, considering that they give the same answers than ground truth methods, which is the diver. And then also like we realized that people are using ReefCloud for non-coral reef images. So that I put it into the gray zone because that it gets a bit into the unknown. That's on the left, that's images like from the settlement tiles. So that's the tiles that they put on the reef to look at the baby corals, like who is arriving on the reef first. So they have images on this, and then they have a ML model now to see. And also we have some projects with people that they look in the mesophotic corals, which is a different ecosystem. It's underneath the coral reef, but it's really different species, different light. I think you, as a robotic people, you could imagine like all the differences in terms of images, light, textures, colors, everything that could influence like the performance of the ML. And so with all this project as well, we're interested to improve the ML, like with the aim really like to be able like to trust more this data. Because to be honest, the ecologists, they don't have much trust into it at the moment. And because it's new, and because also like there is a lot of work to show that they do okay jobs, we can trust it. And so one of the studies that we have here is like, well, one of the issue with the ML is that we don't have measurement of uncertainty. We don't know how good the machine is doing at the labels, at the point, at the patch level. And so we had this idea of putting like, a lot of people have this idea of putting like some Bayesian inferences now at the level of the ML. And so that's a study that we did with people in the Western Australia, with people at AIMS, where we tested like different pipelines. And what we found out like this, the standard pipeline that is used is not necessarily producing like the best outcome. If you see here, so that's real data. And if you see here, like the number, so it should be like the number A and B, like you have these big outliers here of the machine. So you could think that most of the people, they say like, well, but we have a lot of data, so at some point, it should compensate. But if you talk to the ecologists, they're like, no. Everything it's not necessarily like because you will have big data that you're not going to always have the same mistakes from the machine. And that's a kind of, I'm not able to go into like really the details, but we have the paper that is coming out soon. But what we found like if we change these practices from the top to the bottom here, and if we're able to get like some Monte Carlo simulation, so that's what is able to give us not just a point as estimate, but like a distributions, that we are able to go like from these big outliers here to something like flat, which what we want. So the algorithm is performing much better. And then we tested in a lot of different simulations, and then he gives some good results all the time. More than happy to share the papers if you're interested.
Could you speak more on the class balancing versus no class balancing aspect? No worries if you can't, but I just wondered, that's an interesting difference to me, so I just wondered what that's about.
So what I understood is that in industry, like it's a normal practice, like to train the machines on you will have a balanced distributions for all the different classes. So you will have the same distributions for the corals, the same distribution for the algae, the same distribution for the sponges, which in reality it's not like this. We have abundant species, we have rare species, and by just the fact that training the model on class balancing, so forcing it to have all the species have the same distributions, that's already like bring some problems into the algorithm. That makes sense? Okay.
I was kind of curious, is it a lot more effort to use this other practice than you use that?
Yeah. So that's the down is like the Monte Carlo simulation. It's well known like to be slow. So it will take much longer to train the model. Yeah. But at the end, it was really interesting to be able to get the distributions for each levels, because it's really complex data. Talk about the most diverse ecosystem, marine ecosystem in the world, and you could really see like some levels were doing really well, but the rare species, that's really the issues. And there is like this big conflict between us developing this technology, using this amazing data to make it faster. We can provide robust things, but the ecologists, they want the whole pictures. So at the moment, we use AI mostly like on the abundant species, where we know, like as I show you, like the hard coral, the soft corals, really like the high taxonomical level groups. But the ecologists, they want to go to the lower taxonomical groups. So I think that there is also like a big challenge about how can we, because they are really important. If they are really the one disappearing on the reef, that's what makes it like biodiversity. And so that's really one of the main challenges that we definitely haven't managed to find a way to make it. But I think if the fact that having ReefCloud, having all these different projects now give us like at least the data that we need to be able to investigate all of this. That makes sense. And so that's a study as well that we recently done. So the paper is going to be published soon as well. And so we dive into still about the trust, of the ML data. And we wanted to test like the human noise, the fact that we train the machines and we are full of noise, like from the point like this book says like this book is about human judgment. It's mostly about the judges, and as soon as you make a decision, then you introduce some noises. And so we use the theory from this book, which is actually based on social sciences, to look at how then bias and noise propagate into the ML framework. And so this book, it's based on the framework who say that you can have 4 different states. So you can be accurate. So that's more like statistical work, but you can be accurate. So that means like the ground truth, like the right amount of abundances on the reef. You have the ground truth. Like each time the ML produce results, it's accurate, it's in the middle of the target. Or you can be noisy. It's like you're not in the middle of the target, but you kind of around it, but it's a kind of random. Or you can be biased. That means like you constantly, in the biased way, systematically, you miss the center of the target. Or you can be biased and noisy. And so we used this framework. We did an experiment, so that's based on images from the Western Australia. So that's a type of algae called sargassums. And sargassums are quite important ecosystem. So they build like really giant, what they call meadows. And they're quite important because and they are sources where they can capture the CO2. And so there is a lot of study on the blue carbon world about like using these species to be able like to capture safely like more CO2 in the atmosphere. And so we have images from different reefs in Western Australia, and then we have 4 experts who classify the same images, annotate the same images. And then we went to look into deeper about the differences between the classifications. And so what we found that there is definitely the presence of a bias. So we had a chance, like these images were taken exactly at the same locations. So that's the images like what we call the image-based methods. Were taken exactly at the same location that the transect base, where we have the diver. I put these images because that was me in another life, which I went through these transitions where I started my career like with a ruler and being on the transect for 2 hours, like trying to measure absolutely everything along the transect, and up to being able like to use this cool technology where we were just like scootering across like 2 kilometers transect. And so we know that is different methods that they use, so there is necessarily like a presence of bias, and that's a kind of what we show here. So that's 4 different types of algae, and then the substrates. And then if it didn't have any bias, then the 2 distributions should be completely overlapped. So we know that there is a presence of bias, but bias is not a big issue because bias is something that is systematic. So in terms of statistical analysis, we can remove this bias quite easily. The main issue was the presence of nodes from the annotators. So that's what you see here. It's what we call an agreement analysis for like everything that they look at it on the images, so all the different labels. And we look at the agreements between the 5 annotators. So if it was an excellent agreement, it was blue. Then a good agreement, it was green. And then a poor agreement, it was purple. It's purple. And then we look at 2 different things. Like the first experiment is like the annotators, they didn't talk to each other. Everyone went and they do their own things. So that's we call like without calibration, sorry. And then we realized how bad was the result. So everyone went back to the same room, discussed about then like the mechanic, what they look like and how to annotate the images, and that's with the calibrations. But even so you can see like the improvement from without the calibrations, where we still have a lot of purples. When we go up, we have much more green, but we still have the presence of purples. So if they disagree, that means that there is noise. And this book, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but this book are able to differentiate different types of noise. And so one of the noise that we were able to find into this is what we call the level noise. So here, what you see here, like the lines, this line is the crowd mean. Like that's the overall judgment across like the 5 annotators. And you can see that some annotators, they are quite away. They go away from the mean, like in terms positive or negative. And some annotators, like here you can see like the annotators 4 and 2 for a specific type of algae. And you see like for another labels, we also have the annotator 4 and 2 at the extremes. So these 2 annotators, they were all the time the furthest away from the crowd judgments. And that's a kind of noise that you induce when you do the annotations. And especially this annotator 2 here was so far away from the crowd means that when we look at the big pictures, so that's the frequency so that's basically the abundances for the main labels across like the annotators, so from 1 to 5, and then the crowd mean. And if you see this annotator 2, because it was so far away from the specific, for the substrate, was so far away from the crowd means that there is like an underestimation of these substrates, of the abundance of this substrate here. So just imagine like if you only use these annotators to make to classify the images, just him. It's great, wasn't it? That means like we will have an underestimations for these specific labels. And so that's one example of noise, and we found like other types of noise as well that exist. And so when we look at,
I'm just wondering, like, anecdotally with those annotators that you kind of identified as being a little bit outside that spread, were there any characteristics that were clear? Like, were they less experienced? Did they care more deeply about one species than the other, so they were more likely to label that one, or like was there something like this?
Yeah, so for this specific one, what we found out is he was constantly doing something different than the others. Like the others were labeling substrates when he was putting countable, unknown. Yeah, and this is an ecologist, so I suspect that is just because he has. I mean, we tested this and it hasn't been significant, but he's an ecologist, so I suspect that he just cannot necessarily see the substrate from an image. Usually it's something that you really need to go and and you dig. There's usually some sand on the top of it, and it's really hard to see the substrate. This class is really hard to estimate well. So for him, in his own judgment, he was like, I don't know, so I'm going to put unknown or can't tell. So, and it was a systematic noise that he introduced into his answer. Yeah. Whereas for the others, like for example, for the number 4, we couldn't find as a strong pattern like this one. And the number 4 is kind of quite close from the crowd average at the end. So it's not necessarily the presence of, there is a presence of noise, but it's not necessarily ending up of overestimating or underestimating the abundance.
It's almost balancing out over the whole.
I think
data
so.
set in some way.
Yeah, or it was just not far away enough compared to this one. This one is really like completely negative, whereas this one still have some crossing 0. And but this always was not just systematic. So that's and so the interesting things is then how this noise propagates into the ML framework. And so that's our overall pictures with, so you have without calibration, so before the annotator discuss between them, and then after calibrations. So you can see, then we have, so then for the divers, so for our ground truth, then we tested with AML, then an ensemble, using like everyone answers, all the individuals. And what we then recommended is that we definitely need like more than one person to train the model, especially like even like a minimum of 3 people would be like the things that we recommend. Really useful that they discuss before, but discuss in the way that, I don't know if you know like the Coral Finder. It's a book that we can bring in the water when we dive, and then we see a type of corals, and then to find which type of coral it is, then we go through, then what is the form, how it look like, then what is the texture, then what is the color, and each time you have this big tree, and each time you kind of go like to the same systematic answer. So what we talk about calibrations is more doing something like this. Doing the calibrations, if you have one annotators who kind of have a strongest character than everyone, and he's just like priming the other people on his own judgment, that you introduce noise as well. So it's really interesting, like it has to be really careful. Like we are in the world of human judgment. We show that there are some similarities with the judges, with the tribunals, and it has to be, I think it really has to be considered in some way. And then how we conclude is like there is definitely this need of ensemble of ML models. So what we show here, that's basically this pink. The pink dots here, that was the one that I think we can trust the most at the end. And so I wanted to chat with you then, how can we improve this manual training? I know that there are some new architecture who say that we can go different strategies, who say that we can go completely unsupervised or semi-supervised. And so that will allow us to get out of this manual training completely. To be honest, I don't think it will never be possible with the learning that we have from the ReefCloud. Every single project are different, every single images are different. We even have some project now that was in Western Australia where they use ReefCloud, they train the model, it does really well. Then they had the bleaching. They went back to the model with the new data after the bleaching, retrained 30% of the new data, and the model is completely out. So the system has been pushed so far, so quick, that now they basically have to restart from scratch everything that they did before. So that's the reality as well that we are in coral reef. And so maybe there is a way to get out of this manual training and remove the noise and the bias, I don't know. But something that also that we need to consider in the field of coral reef is like, well, how well can we push how far can we push the technology in the way that we cannot go too far, because if you then use new algorithm that needs more energy, then we know that we are going to produce more carbon, and this carbon contribute to climate change, and climate change contributes to kill the reef. So is that, yeah, I think we really need to be mindful working on this field. AI definitely have his spot. The robots definitely can improve, can help us like to get more data. We need data. There is no data, so it could be like a really good and robust way to help to get more data for the reef monitorings, but at what cost at some point? And yeah, that was something from the UN they published a while ago. And that's it. So if you want, we had last week we had a conference called the International Data Week. As part of the conference, I interviewed our chief scientist about ReefCloud. So if you want to hear the podcast and hear a bit more about all of this and ReefCloud specifically, feel free to jump. The name of the podcast is the Random Sample. And that's it. Thank you.
I have quite a few questions, but does anyone want to go first? Yeah, sure.
Not much of a technical question, but
Yes,
I'm
please.
curious to understand this thing. Whether the temperature change is directly a cause for what you call
Bleaching.
Yeah, bleaching, or it becomes a catalyst of the rest of the factors. For example, like we dump everything into sea,
Yeah.
like chemicals, a lot of things, right? So my question is whether the direct cause is those extra additions or dumping into the sea, and the temperature change becomes a catalyst on it, or the other way. Temperature change is the straight cause, and these become a catalyst, or are they both separate causes?
I think they're both separate causes at a certain point. So the temperature change, like these marine heat waves that we have, really affect like the animals, the corals. the animals who live inside, and that's one factors, and the local factors like pollutions, like dynamic fishings, like everything you can see, just add on the top of it. So I think it's more like a cumulative effect. And of course, like also like the fact that the temperature change also have like indirect impact on other factors, like the acidifications as well, and all these things. So it's more like cumulative impact, cumulative independent impact.
Thank you.
Serena?
On a few occasions, you use diver labels as your ground truth. Can you explain what the diver data is? Is that like the divers in the water doing a survey?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do you find that they are the most accurate in terms of when you're doing those surveys?
We use them as a ground truth. We don't know the truth.
Yeah.
So
So
we
something we
never-
struggle with is the ground truth isn't always the truth.
No,
And
no.
so it becomes really
Yeah.
hard if you're off the ground truth.
Yeah.
Is it because you're more accurate? Is it because
Exactly.
you're less
Yeah. No, we don't know the truth. We never
Yeah.
know the truth.
Yeah.
Except if you go and sample absolutely every centimeters from the reef, which is quite often impossible. So we use this transect as representative of the
So
reef.
is the diver in the water doing a manual survey?
Yeah.
Measuring.
Yeah, so they deploy like a transect, so they deploy like a line, which is usually permanent, so you know the beginning and you know the end, and every year you go back to this. And every 10 centimeters, you look what there is underneath.
I see. Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
so that's, but it's still like, there will probably noise into the diver as well.
Yeah.
But that's still a ground truth because that's what all the ecological
what
assessments
everyone
are
agrees
based
with.
on right now.
Currently, yeah. I understand.
Okay, I'm gonna go. So my first question is, you talked a lot about like the different applications of ReefCloud and some different projects that are going on. In each of these examples, like for example the coral bleaching one, are you taking some big model trained on all of the publicly available ReefCloud data and doing like a transfer learning task, or do you start from scratch each time? And how does that work? Like, is ReefCloud one big model that's being reused, or is it like many different models, or like what actually is it?
So I think there is definitely like the big model that is reused, but they retrain it with the new data each time. So I guess there is the base model, which is on the GBR with the monitoring data that's from base, and then on the top of this, people put their new data and then they retrain.
And if you have done that retraining task, is there something to suggest to you that your current images that you're inferring on might be out of distribution from the training data? Or is there some certainty score that's like, you need to retrain?
That's on the dashboard.
Yeah.
You have this kind of metrics. Yeah. So you have the F1 metrics. You also have like this out of distribution.
Other questions from anybody else? Any questions online? I think people online can ask a video. Oh, sorry.
Is anyone able to like contribute to the ReefCloud data? Like I have a bunch of friends that go diving and spearfishing and they do coral photography. Can they like upload this data to ReefCloud and have it part of the photo?
Yeah, from the point is the type of images that we are looking at. We don't look at any single images. It's really the images that they are on from the floor. So if they want to do this, I would just suggest like they have a look on the ReefCloud tutorials about which type of images we are interested to.
An image characteristic for it to be usable.
Yeah. I think I have one. Type of example like this one. And you see that's a specific image, like kind of the constant distances from the floor, and a specific image like pointing down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like no fingers. yeah, there is sorry.
Whoever wants to go.
I mean, I'll go first. Mine's a bit of a tangent. I'm very sorry. Because I'm from a very different department, and I actually work in VR, and I'm looking at how data is like looked at. And I noticed you have a little bit of work on this, but like you're very specifically looking for top-down images and that, which completely like it gets rid of the third dimension, which is quite a big thing, particularly in like size and volume estimate. Like, I don't know. It's kind of introducing a systematic bias, but it's like you're making all the images consistent. Is there some trade-off with that? Like, does it make a big difference if you're getting rid of all of the height data for calculating like how much we know?
I think it does,
Right.
and that's why really like this measurement of abundance is not the end. Like we need to include like different metrics. Like one metrics like that we call like the rugosity is like to show like the 3D. So like and so it's definitely like not the end of the story. It's like we only have like one tiny portions of information here that we can use the technology to do it in an automatic way.
Yeah.
So that means we can trigger like broad scale monitoring programs, but it's not the end.
Right, sure.
Yeah, it will never tell us like the full story about how we've changed.
Okay. And I have many questions about that, but this is not. I'm definitely not the target audience for like that kind of tangent. So you go ahead with your question. I'll go for it.
I was going to ask, is there some kind of automated filtering of the input data images to, maybe someone's uploaded the picture of the same part of the reef twice? Like, how do you avoid counting that data twice? That kind of thing?
Yeah. That's all the automatic filter within ReefCloud.
Okay.
So there is a lot of QA/QC as well to do it at the image level, and so people they can look at they can remove like all the blurry images as well. There is a lot, especially like when we look at the robots one, there is a lot that they are blurry or the image overlap. So we need to get rid of this overlapped image. So everything now is integrated into ReefCloud.
Melanie, did you have one? Yeah.
Thanks. So, my question is building on the previous one that everyone can upload their own images. Do you also track the location from where they took those images? Like if my friends or I go diving, and then I upload the images from my apartment on Gold Coast, do I pin the location where I took those images? Or how does it
You have to. Like space and time is a basic field that we need to be able to get. And so there is like when you upload the images as well, you have a map where you can pin into the map where the images come from. Or like for the big professional monitoring, then we have a GPS. So we get the GPS from the boat. That's really what we recommend. Or like you can track your own GPS as well. All now with the robot is integrated.
I've got an online question from Cesar that I want to ask. So he says, Julie mentioned being cautious about using large language models due to their energy consumption. Do you think that the environmental cost of running larger models could be justified if the ecological insights they provide lead to better conservation outcomes, for example, by improving reef management or restoration efficiency?
Yeah, I mean, first, if we're able to quantify it properly, yes, which we're clearly not able at the moment. So definitely, that's where we head to. That's why we do this, because we think that there is clearly like a benefit of using new technology for reef conservation and management, not only like being able like to produce like fast results, so we can like rapidly like share the changes of the reef, which we definitely need. Like the global reports, they go out every 5 years, but it takes 2 years to put the data together. So kind of when we are at the stage where we put all the data together, we did it, it's kind of too late because the things are already moved on. So new technology really able to build this robust pipeline, producing like new insight really fast and being like trusted, that we can all transparent, that we can test everything. but at the same time, we don't know if, we need to be able like to quantify like how much AI costs. And if but I think like we enter as well in this new world about like ethical AI, people take care of this, we are going to probably find new ways of doing it in the future. So that's kind of reassuring. But at some point it's like, if that's everything is cloud-based, so if Amazon that just contribute to produce more, where's the trade-off? I don't have a clear answer, sorry.
And then just the last one, another one from Cesar. He says, Julie mentioned the challenge and cost of transitioning to more advanced software in the context that AIMS perhaps is known for being conservative regarding their methods, such as those used for the long-term monitoring program. So he's asking, given how quickly technology evolves, how do you decide if it's worth investing in a new tool versus consolidating and refining something that already works? Do you have strategies for staying adaptive without constantly rebuilding those analytical pipelines?
So that's a kind of out of my work, but I know that AIMS is going through a big restructurations, like to be much more efficient on this aspect. So I think like in the future, we're going to stop having every single team creating their own pipeline, and they're going to make something like a bit more like with more cohesion and more efficient as well. So, but I'm not. I analyze data and I'm doing ecology, so I'm not the one who necessarily take the decisions of changing the technology. But a good example is that also we work with the indigenous people, like in the Northern Territory, and they are the one who are asking for the new technology. They're the one who are asking, like, so they want to collect their own data. They are the one who are asking, like, for the risk scan, they're asking for these new robots because they see the value into it to collect their own data. So I think there is definitely like probably they will be the one who have the last words at the end if you change methods or not, which fair enough.
Awesome. Okay. Well, it's 2:00 basically, so we might leave it there.
Thank you.
Can we thank Julie one more time?